What was the last game that actually forced you to put the spreadsheet away and just play? Let's be blunt. Mystery in gaming isn't just dying. That corpse went cold a long time ago. It's being professionally liquidated. We've traded the magic circle, that sacred space where the game's internal logic actually mattered, substituting clinical, joyless efficiency of a spreadsheet. The discovery phase of modern releases has been compressed from months of schoolyard rumors to about 6 hours of data mining before day one patches hit. Now, if you're wondering why your $70 purchase feels like a second job, it's, because the internet has kind of restructured the very foundations of how we play. We're living through an era of epistemological atrophy. The solution supremacy is here, and it's optimizing the fun out of the medium. So we're doing something a little bit different today. This is going to be peak second monitor content, so just know what you're signing up for here. This is a thing that it's been bouncing around in my skull for, a couple years at this point, and just wanted to get thoughts out there and see what y'all think. So the gameplay in the background is just going to be some random games. If you want to watch that, go for it. But I would very strongly anticipate this being the kind of thing you put on your phone or on like a television while you fold laundry or something. So, and speaking of second monitors, if you can't play a game without a second monitor open to a wiki or a spreadsheet, the game hasn't been just solved, it's been stripped. And really, what's the secret worth when discovery velocity is immediate? In the pre-internet era, the opacity of a game was a design feature. You spent weeks investigating urban legends, Bigfoot in San Andreas or Mew under the van. Because there wasn't any centralized repo of truth, that opacity fostered community. We built oral traditions. And when I say oral traditions here, I mean that in damn near every middle and high school, at least in the US, like we all knew Mew was under the van or that Marilyn Manson had those ribs removed. Now, the validity of that oral tradition is something entirely different, as per my most recent example there. But we've substituted that sense of community for data supremacy, for lack of a better term. We've moved from those oral traditions to like globalized, data-driven enclosure of, it's over here. And something I've noticed is that there's almost like a security blanket effect going on. Players will often refuse to engage with mechanical systems until they've verified the optimal meta path through external data. This isn't mastery. It's an immediate optimization that effectively kills the longevity of any secret or game. The real friction has now even moved to the code level. Devs are now in a figurative arms race against the secret hunters. Hiding a secret in a remote corner of a map or behind a waterfall or under the stairs is now useless. Data miners will find the coordinates instantly. And to fight back, devs have had to do things as extreme as custom engines and AES encryption, where the key was generated by in-game actions, not stored in the code. It requires some gnarly levels of reverse engineering to crack. And I think it was Tunic a while ago used Unity to mangle C# into C++, making it be opaque to human readers without doing a grip of things. And even games like WoW move the logic of a secret to the server side. Yeah, you can see the item or the mount in the files. You can't see the trigger till the server says so. And I think it was when The Lost in Binding of Isaac got data mined. Unless I'm misremembering, the dev took to the internet to just express how profoundly disappointed, all that effort was reduced to. The community chose to cheat rather than solve the puzzle. We've reached a point where, for many people, the joy isn't in playing the game, but in cracking it. Hold on. Before we go any further, yes, I'm aware that I post guide content, and that in some ways I'm part of this problem. Let's use my old Space Marine videos as an example here. I've always been fairly upfront about the fact that they're not meta. They're going to get you 80% of the efficacy, so you get extra wiggle room. The people who are pushing true solo absolutes, well, they don't need a build. They're going to figure it out on their own. And I think it's that difference in the way I approach guide making that at least helps me sleep at night. I think it's also important to talk about something that many of you probably have never heard of before. That's the phenomena called net decking or net listing. This originally came out around the time of the GeoCities internet era. And the Cliff Notes version here is that's the practice of copying a championship-winning build or deck list or army list exactly as it is posted online. Now, while this is efficient, it is also the death of creative autonomy. It turns cards or skills or units into a binary of good or bad, and discouraging the use of odd cards that could actually provide a strategic advantage through surprise. Back Prior to the rise of net decking, you would get a group of friends together and actually build your decks with the cards you had, and there would be that one guy who always figure out the mathematically optimal way to play with everything that was there, and we all kind of hated him a little bit because he wasn't fun to play against. But the comparative friction and like the heavy lift of figuring out that mathematically perfect build is significantly heavier than it is just punching something into Google. And following up on my recognition that I'm part of this issue, this is kind of where the content churn becomes a bit of a parasite. Creators in many ways are slaves to the algorithm. You have to focus on top-tier builds because that's what the algorithm rewards. There's this content churn where the same limited strategies are broadcast repeatedly, ensuring that the entire player base eventually adopts the same cookie-cutter playstyle. And yes, in some ways, if you're playing, say, a cooperative PvE game, you do owe it to the people you're playing with to bring something that's effective. Otherwise, you're sandbagging your team, and that's just you being a bag of dicks. That's not you being unique. We've talked a little bit on stream about psychographic profiles, Timmy, Johnny, and Spike. If we want a more detailed dive into that, I'm happy to do one. Otherwise, I'll put a link to, I think it was Vince Venturella, had a video on this about 1.5 years ago. That'll be in the description. It's good. Watch. Super Cliff Notes version, Timmy is just really there to have fun. They want their deck or their unit or their build to do their one really cool thing. And if they get to do that, they don't care if they win. They got to do their cool thing, they're stoked. Johnnies tend to build things a bit more like Rube Goldbergian chains of events. I'm very significantly a Johnny, if you hadn't noticed yet. Back when I played Magic, I would play blue-black. So a whole lot of, no, you're not doing that. Oh, and you don't have any health. Johnnies look at things about, yes, we enjoy winning, but it's not enough to just win. You have to win in a clever fashion. And the thing I've seen the most with the proliferation of not only content creation, but the ubiquity of the internet is the rise of the spikes. You're always going to have spikes. There was always that one guy, like I mentioned earlier, but again, it was significantly harder to be a spike, who prioritizes winning at any cost. They don't care if the strategy is boring. And this tends to create some pretty toxic environments. If we look at like Final Fantasy XIV or any MMO really, hell, you even see it in Space Marine, where people gatekeep based on mathematically optimal performance and anything reasonably high level. If you're not following the meta, well, you're getting kicked. A while back, there was a saying that I don't remember where I heard first. Given the opportunity, players will optimize the fun out of any game. If a boring path is the most efficient, players will take it and then complain that they're bored. The industry's response in this has largely been homogenization. To obtain this mathematical balance here, devs have to stand down the edges or make changes that hollow out the experience. Thinking about my time back in old school WoW, early on, you would get people that ran weird builds that really shouldn't have worked and only did because of the weird builds that the other people in the party were using. I'm remembering this one druid that was routinely dropping 8,000 point heals in vanilla. They couldn't do that very often, except for with one of our main tanks who managed to get a health bar larger than that in vanilla somehow. Mathematically, no, that's absurd. You wouldn't do that. It worked for our guild though. So really, wrapping up this old man yells at cloud moment here, our approach to games and the internet has connected us, and it's also enclosed us. The death of secrets and the rise of spikes in the meta, they're not just trends. I think they're systemic failures of the medium's soul as it exists now. When games become optimized puzzles rather than explorations, they lose their status as something to do for fun or a third place. Really, the value in games is plummeting because that aha moment of discovery, when you figured something out for yourself or talked with your friends about it, is now being sold to you via a code dump posted on Twitter or Reddit, rather than earned through a heroic journey. Your challenge here isn't to beat the game. That ship sailed a long time ago. Your challenge now is to resist the urge to optimize the fun out of your own experience. Stop checking the wiki, play the odd cards, reclaim the magic circle. I've been Bald Squid. I'll see you next time.